All right. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. Welcome to the Klear Channel. I'll tell you, we have an incredible guest speaker today who clearly got the memo of what to wear on the Klear Channel on Friday. But for those of you guys who are joining us live, please look to your left, look to your right, in the offices that are joining us today, and ask your peer if they haven't subscribed. Please go to YouTube and subscribe. We've been, we set up this Klear Channel about 4 years ago now. We have over 100 videos on it of entrepreneurs and success stories and leadership topics. And I'll tell you, today is going to be one of the best, I am sure. And I'm a little biased because we have Vanessa here today. Good morning, Vanessa.
Good morning.
So for anyone that's joining us live, Vanessa and I have a relationship. Before, well, actually, we didn't really know each other, but we found out we knew friends of friends, right? So Vanessa's from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, as am I, and she went to the best high school, I think, in the country. Did you not?
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, St. Thomas Aquinas Raiders. I mean, who would have known? So Vanessa, if you could just start off and just tell us about, family life, growing up, maybe a little bit about high school,
Sure.
and obviously going to the best Catholic school in South Florida, and then maybe college a little bit, and we'll jump into entrepreneurship and also all the things you've done as far as service. I know that's a huge part of your world. So
Yeah,
tell
sounds
us
great.
about life and growing up.
All right. So I grew up in South Florida in a town called Weston. And growing up in South Florida, I came from a really big family. So my mom and my dad, I'm one of seven. We're six girls, one boy. And at a very young age, I saw a lot of work ethic. My dad has incredible work ethic. He's a physician. Still to this day, in his 70s, he still wakes up at like 5:30 in the morning. And runs
Wow.
like the same routine. And my mother was really the person that, like, my social skills, my people skills, all that stuff, I think, comes from my mom. And we'll talk a little bit later, but I think getting into service in the community, I think that part comes from my mother too. So growing up in a big family in South Florida, I went to, private Catholic schools, and then that led me to St. Thomas, which I also think it's the best high school in Florida. But the thing I loved about St. Thomas, which is why I think, St. Thomas, probably why Ken's family also sent them there, is that the school just had like high standards of excellence. They had high standards for academics. They had high standards for sports. They had high standards for community and giving back. And I think that for me, even though the school's like tons of fun, I think it set me up for the real world, knowing that like you're going to have to get out there and you're going to have to perform and you're going to have to give 100%. And I thought that, high school did a great job of doing that. I continued my Catholic education. I went to, I guess I couldn't get enough. I went to Loyola University in New Orleans, and it's a Jesuit school. And there I studied business. So I double majored in international business and marketing, and I minored in management. And I think a lot of my community service and giving back even expanded even more from high school into college, doing different outreaches, tsunami relief, doing food drives, Thanksgiving drives, and joining a sorority, and you have to give back. So I just think it's been embedded in like my family and my education, and up until that point. Fun fact, I went to high school with my husband. We were high school sweethearts. So Brian and I met in English class freshman year, Miss Francis English class in the 100 hallway. And, we've been together somehow. We're not, he's not sick of me. I'm not sick of him. We love each other. So that's positive. And in all the years of being together, he, has obviously been by my side while I also dabbled in entrepreneurship and did stuff with charities. We have two children, Kira and Gavin. She's 9, he's 7. And that's also just been an amazing chapter of my life. Probably my most favorite role is, being a mom. So that's my Hollywood story. And
I love it. I love it. So 7
Mm-hmm.
siblings. How was that in the house? Like, were you like throwing elbows at the dinner table? I mean,
Listen, I'll be
and
honest with you.
where do you fall in the lineup?
So my dad had two children from a previous marriage. So, and then my mom had one daughter, and then they got married, and then had myself and my three younger sisters. So, I'm technically the first of their marriage, but I'm seven total because we were all together. So dinner tables. I mean, it was chaos. If all of us had one friend over, it was automatically 14 kids, running through the house. My mom always cooked, like my mom and my aunt tell us, they always cooked like the big pots, just like tons of food. So I thought like all rice had to be made big, like all meals were just large portioned. And I remember when I would go to friends' houses and they'd have like these cute little pots, and I was like, oh, that's cute. But everything was just always like supersized and large. My house was loud and lively and exciting. And even though kids do fight and there's little nuances, as we've grown up, my sisters and I, we're just so tight. We're so close.
Yeah.
And life has all brought us back here to South Florida, and we're all raising our kids together. So we get to see all the 9 nieces and nephews grow up and go to each other's sports games and dance recitals. And, I think I'm blessed to have such like a tight knit, loud, rambunctious family.
I love it. I love it. So you go off to school, you study business. I didn't realize New Orleans. Were you there when all those things happened in New Orleans?
When the hurricane hit, I had just left 2 months before. So I just joined my first sales job out of college. And I remember, the hurricane hit in my old house. I went back to volunteer in New Orleans one weekend to like help clean up. And I went to go visit my old house that I was living in senior year, like sophomore through senior year. And one of like the big oak trees had like gone through the kitchen, and it was like flooded and stuff. And I remember thinking
Wow.
like, wow, I just missed this like tragic event. Like I was grateful I wasn't there, but the city really transformed, and it's bounced back since then. But it was very tragic, with the
Yeah.
hurricane.
Yeah, I remember that. I I had an office down there during that time, and we had to, we'd evacuate, we had to move. I mean, it was chaos.
Wild,
So,
wild.
yeah, wild. Um, okay, so you come from an amazing family. I see it now. Obviously, being we're so close now, I see all the things on social media and the family events. Like the fact that you said that you had one friend over and your parents had this big thing. I'm just like, no kidding. They're serving a soccer team. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like every time it's like you have a soccer team over. But so out of school, you fall into sales. Tell us about that decision and what was that like and that experience and what
Sure.
type of sales?
I in college, even though I went to like a great business school and loved learning business in school, I wish they would have at that time. I think now people maybe do a better job of talking at sales, but when I was going through my college degree, sales wasn't even a course. Do you know what I mean? Like it wasn't even really spoken about. And I remember interviewing for jobs and there being like a ton of sales jobs. And being like, I have no experience in sales. I didn't get it. So I graduated school. I knew what I didn't want, right? I didn't want to be stuck in a cubicle. I didn't want to look around and see everyone dying around me because they'd been there for 80 years. I wanted somewhere exciting where like the culture was good. I wanted to be people facing, so I knew that much, and I knew that no matter where I landed, I was going to work hard. I was like, no matter where I land, I'm going to work hard, and I'll find my way to move up. Um, I had bartended my senior year in college in New Orleans, so as you can imagine, the people skills from that. The fun
It had to
environment.
be fun.
Oh man, it was tons of fun and crazy. But
Were you on Bourbon Street?
I was actually I bartended at a bar called the Boot, which is really on like it touches Loyola's campus and Tulane. It's like right in the corner. So it's
Hmm.
this like huge college bar that pretty much like doesn't close. So it was a great time. Uh, but what it taught me was is that like that was kind of like commission based. Like the more you hustled and the more people you served, the more tips you got. Um, the better job you did when they came back, they were your regulars. Like it kind of like set a foundation for where I was going to be headed, and I didn't understand that at the time. I decided I was going to study abroad and, go into like masters and study in Europe. And last minute, I decided not to and to go to Orlando because that's where Brian was, which I guess worked for me because we ended up getting married. And my parents at the time weren't like super excited about me not getting a higher education because my three older siblings did. So my dad was just very point blank. Like, if you're not going to go to school anymore, then I'm not going to, help fund Vanessa's activities. Like, if you're going to go and be a big kid and go into the real world, then, you need to get a job.
You're on your own.
And I didn't get it. Like, I'll be honest with you. I was kind of born very fortunate. Like, we traveled, grew up, and did a lot of nice things. So it was a rude awakening for me. Like, I remember swiping the mobile card at the gas station and them being like, your card declined. And I was like, what? As I had, gotten gas and maybe some snacks and like a 6-pack of beer, I was like, what do you mean? And they were like, no. I remember calling my dad and I was like, my card's declined. So weird. And he was like, of course it is. I took you off the card. Like, you need to get a job. And I was like, oh my gosh. And now looking back, it was so good for me. It was so good for me to get out there. So I interviewed for a sales position in Orlando for outside.
Can I stop you real quick, which is
Yeah.
really funny? I had a similar experience when I was out of school. So my father, I had a credit card that my dad helped pay for through college because my scholarships for soccer paid for my books and paid for whatever, but it didn't pay for some of the food I needed, the extra things. And so when I finished school, same thing. He said, "Hey, if you're not in school, you're on your own." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, no problem, Dad. Of course I am." And I spent the money on the credit card like early few weeks of January, and then when I got the bill, I would send it to my dad, and he would pay the couple $100, whatever the bill was. And I remember he wrote return address on it, and so it came back to me, and I'm like, and I called him, and I was like, "Hey, Dad, I sent you something in the mail, and blah blah." He goes, "Oh, I know what you sent. I didn't even open it. I know what it was." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I sent you a card, for Christmas." He's like, "No, you didn't. You sent me your credit card bill." And I put return address on it. When I told you January 1, you're cut off. You're cut off. Don't ask me for money. And I was like, "Oh shit, he's actually serious."
Yeah.
That was my experience. I was like, "Oh my god." My back was against the wall. That was like I had $37 in my bank kind of thing.
Yeah. Listen, and Ken, at the time, my emotional maturity and my ability to see the bigger picture, obviously at a young age, you don't get it. Like, you think you're being punished. But really what I think our parents were doing were showing us like the value of our work ethic and that we needed to have a sense of urgency to like attack our future. And I think now being a parent, that's so crucial because I see so many kids in limbo land sometimes, like they can't find themselves and they're trying to figure out and they're looking for the perfect circumstance. And it's like, instead of asking for like the ocean to be, calm, for example, like you're better off learning to ride the waves. And I think our parents just like threw a board and they were like, learn to surf. And that is what I'll do with my kids too. I think it served us.
Yeah, 100%. So you fall into sales in Orlando, it seems like.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
what type of sales were you doing?
I was going business to business selling office supplies, and I was the worst in the beginning. Like, I remember I would take everything so personally. Like, if someone didn't want the office supplies, I was like,
Like, what do
why?
you
Like,
mean?
what do you mean? Like, it was just such a
Don't
heartbreak.
you like me?
Yeah. I was like, what am I doing wrong? Like, and it's so funny um, because I really learned how to fail forward and how to like get up and try again. And instead of counting the no's, I learned to search for the yes and to keep pushing through. And obviously my people skills then skyrocketed to a different level. Like, I remember I was in a 7-Eleven after being in this company for a month, and I was with a friend that was not in the sales company I was in. And in the 7-Eleven, I was looking at everyone like, hey, how are you? Oh, good. Do you need to, like, I was talking to every human that walked into the 7-Eleven, and I got to the front of the counter and I saw the person's tag. let's say their name was Susan. I was like, hey, Susan, thanks so much. And, have a great day. And my friend is like, are you okay? Like, you are just talking to everyone. And then at that moment, I remember I realized, like, wow, the impact that the development and the experience was doing to my personal development and how I was showing up in the world was enough to get me to keep coming back and grow.
I love it. I love it. So, so you get promoted, you start growing in the industry that we're in, right?
Yeah.
And you start learning how to lead. So let me ask you this. Let's say there's someone listening to this call today, or maybe in the future, that's, lost their confidence in sales or lost their confidence in leadership with mentoring others. What would you tell your younger self if you're in a place where you need to rebuild your confidence or be more confident? What would you say?
Um, you know, I think sometimes I'm going to empathize when I've lost my confidence and I have not felt my best. Like I can't see anything past the problem. Everything feels so heavy. Um, I think the best thing that I've ever done was like take a step back and start writing down things that I did have going for me. Like, and even if they were like small things and small things like, the health of people that I love or a relationship I'm in or my dog or your kids or the fact that you got to travel somewhere or you graduated college. It could be anything. But I think like as mundane as that sounds, not just like saying it in your head, but actually like writing it out, what you're doing is you're reminding yourself that like you're frustrated not because you're failing, you're frustrated because you know that there's better results that you can deliver. Like it, I think frustration then turns from like a negative weight that holds us down. That gratitude shows us that like I'm more than this. This is just, what do I have to learn? Like it's not even like an obstacle, like how do I get over this? You're not jumping over things. It's like, what lesson needs to be taken? What opportunity do I have to gain a new skill or gain, and get better? And then I think my next step is I hang out with people that believe in me because I need to borrow their confidence while I'm still figuring out mine. And I know that sounds so silly, but I'll get around people that just like love me and think I'm great. And then I start thinking like, damn, I am great, or I am awesome. And that and that just gives you enough of a spark to like reignite, what's in you. I really believe in my heart that we have everything we need to be successful inside of us. We just have to reach down and use it. And sometimes the lights turn off, but that little spark can light everything back up and give us all the confidence and momentum to keep climbing. And I empathize when you lose your confidence. I really, really do. But it's crucial just to take like that next step, and then before you know it, you've lapped the bases and you're already making home runs.
I love it. I love it. I remember visiting you. So obviously we've known each other for a minute, and there's a piece of time that I lost my confidence in running my business and doing things. And I want to say like about 10 years ago, 8, 10 years ago, I was going through a lot, right? As family stuff I had gone through. And I went down to your company. I spent, I think, a week with you. And I remember stepping into your office with, a small group of leaders or trainers I had with me. And I was really there for me to learn, how to raise my game and get better. I mean, your business at that point was, I want to say 40 or 50,000 a week in revenue. I don't remember exactly, but I just know you were crushing it. And I remember standing in your office, right? And I think you were actually, maybe you were pregnant at the time. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think you were. And I remember standing in this room, and you had all these sharp reps and these top performers, and you went around to every single person every day, and you said, "Tell me about your day yesterday. What went well? What were your numbers? And if you didn't hit your numbers, why didn't you hit your numbers?" And you put people on the spot every single day, and hold themselves accountable to their performance on a daily basis. And I was uncomfortable for them, and I was like, "Holy shit, this is like, hey, what are we doing now? What are we changing now? What are we doing?" So the reason I bring that up is like you've always been really strong at holding others accountable and pushing them to their greatness. tell me about your mindset around this, that strategy, right? And some people can't handle, I guess, that positive pressure, even the negative pressure, right? So tell me about that strategy and why you did that.
You know, thank you for saying those nice things. I think for me, what consistent efforts yield consistent results. I was told that at a young age in the business, and I just believed it, right? So I felt as a coach, my job was to make sure that I was aware of what efforts I was putting in, and I was aware of what results those were going to yield. And I was equally responsible to make sure that every single player knew what efforts they were putting in and what results they were going towards. And I find sometimes that accountability, like not just, it's not to be mean, but it's just like, wake up, let's really address what's going on, and let's make sure we have a solution. And sometimes the solution is the accountability and just saying what's going on, like, oh wow, I am going to be held accountable and I do want better results and I should come up with a plan, right? And sometimes it also teaches people to like ask for help, which is a very healthy thing to do when you don't know what you're doing. And it kind of avoids people from falling into this like lack of confidence, or I should have known, or I should have done these things. It makes it a culture to want to seek the best performance in yourself, but also hold everyone responsible and put the pressure on the actions. Like if you do these things consistently, you will get there. And I think as a kid, even raising my kids right now, I don't want to glorify like my kids straight A's or whether they win a trophy or not. Like, my nephew, for example, just got South Florida, like ECNL, whatever, like top team soccer or whatnot. He's also my godson. I sent him a text yesterday when he got placed on the team again, right, without trying out. Like I said to him, I know you're a straight A student and I know that you win tournaments all the time. What I'm most impressed with is like your commitment and your effort and your discipline that you do every single day. And because you do that every single day and you make those choices, that's why you're getting these results. And I want to expose that to people. Like, it's not that this person's lucky, is that this person was prepared. And this person chose to stay an extra hour. And this person's having one-on-ones in the morning. I want it to be very visible why we win and how we can win. And I think once people understand the intention, they can get behind the accountability and the same
Yeah,
accountability for myself.
I love it. I love it. So you a few years ago come across with Vera and a few other young ladies in the business a little special opportunity. Tell us about that.
We wanted to do a girls trip, typically like the spa, the whole, taboo girls thing. However, we wanted to do something different. And I had done some, immersion missionary work in college. I did some stuff in Nicaragua and we were talking about it. And my friend Rebby found this orphanage through a company called A Broader View. And they picked it because it spoke, believes they speak English. So we wanted to be able to connect with the children. And we went there for like 10 days to Liberty Children's Home. And I have to tell you, I did not know how much that was going to change my life. We went there and we met these kids, and you see kids of like have been trafficked, sexual abuse, neglect, you name it, like horrific things. And sometimes they even come as families, like brothers and sisters, and from babies to 8 years old, 9 years old, preteen. You would think that they would be so guarded and so shut down. And when you show up, it's like all the things that like we wanted as kids, from our parents. Like, can you sit down and do my homework? Can you play this? Can you kick the ball with me? Can you do these things? I was so overwhelmed with the love that they were giving that was like my first, culture shock. The second thing was it was noticeable that there was not funds. Like they were eating like a corner of a tortilla with like refried beans that were like a little bit like watered down. You can tell that there wasn't money. Do you know what I mean? Like there wasn't enough to help these children. So the day we left the place, this little girl Nia comes up to me and says, "Are you going to come back?" and I think she was like 7 at the time. And I said, I just had Kira. She was like maybe 4 months, 5 months old. I got to talk to my husband, but I will find a time to come back. I just don't know when. I don't want to mislead you and tell you this date. I have to go home and find out when. And she said, everyone says they come back and they don't. And that, I remember looking at Vera, like she heard it, looking at her face. Tears are like in my eyes. She hugged me, a stake through my heart. And we were in the small Belizean airport, and we're like, we're coming back. So the three of us came back for Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate, with bags of stuff. And then over the years, we just realized we have to get more people involved. Like, three of us can only do so much. And like Ken, your family has always done holiday gifts for the kids. Your company consistently sponsors our golf tournament to help fund these kids. And feed them and basic nutrition and needs. And we've been able to bring people to Liberty. And since then, I've started a nonprofit called Butterfly Children's Charities. And now we help children, not just in Belize. A large portion, like, 60, 70% of what we raise goes to Liberty. But we've also been able to help foster kids here in the United States. We've been able to help kids with special needs. We were able to help Indigenous people in South America, kids, and it's starting to grow through our events and through our service in our community. And it just feels good to give back. It just feels good to bring people together to make a positive impact and hopefully change the trajectory of these children's lives.
Yeah, I love it. I know I went there a few years ago. We painted, the community center and spent some time there, and yeah, and I know a lot of people like Adrian and a few others in our organization have donated a lot of money and spent time. She went there on her honeymoon, right? I remember that. But it's
But I'm
awesome.
not surprised that your guys do that, Ken, because your business has a culture of giving back and your business has a culture of like social responsibility. And I think teaching that to young entrepreneurs, money and fame and freedom, all these things are wonderful. But once the buzz of all that goes away, um, and you start building the second season of your life, like family and things like that, you start evaluating like, what do I want my legacy to be about, and what type of impact do you want to make? And I think it's awesome that you're teaching people that so young in the game.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for that. I'll tell you, it's neat to see, at the event, like even at Keys this year, right? We raised 30,000 or something in like 30 minutes, right? Among all of our partners in the business and young entrepreneurs and things. And I think the neat thing is you help create that opportunity, right? I think that's awesome. It's awesome. And for those that don't know, you want to tell them what I know. I helped this golf tournament here in a few weeks, but we got a little hat coming out. I hear. I
We
saw
do.
you.
We do. Ken, your company's, has been so helpful in sponsoring and someone that we like rely on every year. And one of the things is that Ken's our hat sponsor. So there's his company, the 2313, it's like sponsor of the butterfly, golf tournament. So every attendee is going to have that on their head, which I love. And I think hats get used. So not only will it be for the tournament, but I think it's something that can be just used all the time. I definitely wear hats all the time. But we're throwing a golf tournament Friday, May 31st. And I think we have over 100 golfers. And our goal is to not only just like have fun and have a good time and, round of golf and make the event fun, but also just bring people together and raise money and raise more awareness for the children in need. And it's like one of our big kickoff events for the year. So we're really excited. Ken always comes down and brings the competition. So I hope you guys win this year. I'm excited for you.
So I had a conversation with Brennan last night for a little bit around the tournament. I'm like, Brennan, so who should we put on the team? We gotta recruit the right players this year. I gotta make sure I have the right foursome. I was like, because I'm like halfway decent, so we gotta have a couple like pro golfers so I can like just kind of not be important in that foursome. So it's a good time. Well, Vanessa, any final thoughts? I know you got some client calls you got to jump on this morning and things. Any final thoughts? Thank you so much for spending the time with us today. And we look great in maroon. I mean, we look great. And
We like totally match. And I just,
totally.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. I think if I had to close on a final thought, I would say that for those of you that know where you're going clearly, run full speed. Run full speed. If it's clear, then just take the runway and go. For those of you that don't, it's okay. What's important is that the next step is clear and that the next step is in the direction of where you want to go. And I think that's why this business is so great, because you have the resources and you have the coaches and you have the people that will help bring clarity to what you're doing. And I think once we know the why, the how just happens, so utilize your resources, use this opportunity to the fullest. I mean, this business changed my life with the people it brought into my life, the skills it gave me to build a charity, the platform it gave me to help people. It developed me into the mother that I am, the friend that I am, and how I show up in the world. And I can only imagine with how much the business has improved, what the next generation is going to take and what you guys are going to do. So thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much. I heard recently, the bigger the why, the bigger the try.
Oh, I
Right.
love
So
that.
the more you know about why you do what you do, the more you lean into what you have to do and the more commitment you bring to it. So
Love
thank you so much. Happy Friday. Vanessa, hang tight just 1 second because it takes a second to download things, but thanks for jumping on. Have an amazing Friday. Join us on the Klear Channel anytime. Thank you.